Hey, what's up guys, it's Rob. Hope you're doing really well. So at the moment it's January, and January isn't really the best month to be a self-employed musician for one particular reason, which is it's tax return deadline time. 31st of January is the time to get your tax return done if you are self-employed like me. I recently made a video explaining how I make all of my income as a musician, as a guitar player, which I really enjoy. I really enjoy being a self-employed musician and making all of my money from the guitar. But there is another side to that, which is obviously being self-employed. You've got to pay your own taxes and declare everything and put everything through the books. And at times that can be pretty stressful. I mean, I've just yesterday submitted my tax return to HMRC, and it's taken me a couple of days, even before doing the actual tax return, to get all of my books up to date and go through all of my receipts, all my files, and just make sure that I've got everything ready before doing the tax return. So it's been a pretty stressful week. I've not really been able to focus on making other video content and stuff like that because I've just been so wrapped up in that, and I've been doing that and fitting that around obviously working and teaching and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not been the best week for productivity in terms of this, but I'm so glad now that I've got my tax return done and the weight is completely off my shoulders. But anyway, what I thought I would do is, as it's been on my mind so much this week, and it's kind of still on my mind now even though I've finished with it and done it yesterday, I thought I would just make a video as kind of a follow-up to my income video about taxes and stuff like that, just in the hopes that I can potentially help anybody out, anybody who might be in a position similar to mine, or maybe on the newer scale of things, like if you've just started being a self-employed musician, or you want to be doing that in the future but you don't know anything about paying your own taxes and doing all that sort of stuff, because it can be quite daunting and it can be quite worrying, because if you don't know what you're doing, then you can feel like you might be making a ton of mistakes or not doing the right thing. So I'm going to explain everything that I do, and there's different ways of doing things. I mean, there's definitely easier ways and there's definitely harder ways. I would say that I personally go about it not in the easiest way, but it's just the way that I do it, so I'm used to it. So I kind of just stuck to my own way of doing things, which I'll explain in a minute. But I just want to say that don't be afraid of the whole paying taxes thing. Don't be afraid of, oh, afraid is the wrong word, but don't see paying taxes as a bad thing, as something to avoid. Definitely don't be what we call here in the UK a tax dodger, because that will get you absolutely nowhere. I mean, yeah, you might earn money and not have to pay any tax on it, but that won't help you out in the long run if you're not putting through all the work that you're doing through your books or declaring it, because that could really bite you in the backside later on in life, especially if you get caught out. But also declaring and telling HMRC how much money you're earning in a year is really good for later in life if you want to rent an apartment, for argument's sake, or get a mortgage on a house or get a loan or anything like that. Things that are pretty much going to be, you're going to want to do later in life. You need to have proof of income, and you need to be able to prove to these organisations how much you earn and that it's all legit and everything like that. Because if you're just earning money cash in hand, say for a gig or something like that, or teaching lessons, which is what I do. I don't get cash in hand, but I teach lessons and play gigs. But if you do get cash in hand and you're not telling anybody about that, you're just pocketing it and living the life of luxury, then suddenly you want to rent an apartment or a house or get a mortgage or anything like that, you're going to have nothing on file to show how much money you've earned, so nobody's going to give you a mortgage. Anyway, so yeah, don't be afraid of paying taxes. It is a good thing. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's a good thing ultimately. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way. But anyway, as a self-employed musician, what do I need to be doing to make sure that I'm doing everything right and being legit and all that sort of stuff? Is ultimately there's only a couple of things that you really need to be doing. Just quickly, yesterday when I filmed the video, I forgot to mention the absolute first thing that you should do is register as self-employed. Seems a pretty obvious thing, but I definitely forgot to mention that yesterday. Go on the HMRC website, register as self-employed. Do that as soon as possible. Even if you've got a job and you're employed already, you can still register as self-employed, even if you've only just started doing self-employed work like gigging or anything like that. Even if you're only earning £10 a year from being self-employed, register and still put that through, because you can put your tax return through with the current employment that you have with the P60. So you take all your details from the P60 of the place that you work at from that end of that tax year, combine that with your self-employed work. That's the sort of stuff they ask for when you go through your self-assessment. Secondly, speaking of self-assessment, which is what you do online, where you do your own online tax return, you need to register to be able to do that separately. When I first did it, I almost did it wrong because I thought that just registering as self-employed meant that I could just log on and do my tax return online, which isn't the case. You need to register as self-employed and then register to do your tax return online. So there's two separate things you need to sign up for if you want to do it online, which I highly recommend. Anyway, we've got those things out of the way, back to the video. Firstly, you need to be tracking every last little bit of income that you make as a musician, which can be, as I said earlier, from playing a gig. Even if it is cash in hand, make a note of it and write down the date that you got paid, the day that you played the gig, how much you got. Make a note of it, write it down, and it's absolutely best to do this as and when you do it. Don't do what I did, which is basically I didn't write down what I was doing as and when I was doing it, which meant that when it came to do my tax return and filling out my books, that I had to go back and look through everything that I did back for the tax date that I was looking at, which this time was 2018 into 2019. So even though it's 2020 now, the tax return I've just done is for 2018 into 2019 because it's from April to April. Obviously it's not April 2020 yet, that'll be the next one that I do. But anyway, I left everything to the last minute. Don't do that, that's my first tip. Don't leave things to the last minute. It took me friggin' ages to write everything out. So don't leave it to the last minute, do it as and when you do it, but that's what you should be doing. You should be making a note of every last little bit of income that you get. Some of this stuff might seem really obvious, but if you're new to it, maybe not, so that's why I'm explaining. So I'm not entirely sure where I got up to then, because my phone just rang, so I've just been on the phone for a little bit. So I don't know what I was talking about, but I think I was basically talking about any income that you get as a musician, as a guitar player or whatever. Just make a note of it in date order, and it helps to do it as and when you're doing it. So that's the first thing you need to be doing. You need to have all of your income in one big place written down, because at the end of the year, you're gonna need to add all of that up. So that gives you your total income for that year. As I said, 2018 into 2019 is the one that I've just done. So I wrote all of my income down and added it up, and that told me how much money I made in that year. I'd actually say it really helps in doing that to get as much of your money paid into your account straight away as possible, just so that you can obviously use your bank account as a reference for all of your payments. But if you get paid cash in hand, which I used to for lessons and stuff like that, some lessons were paid into my account and some lessons were cash. Then obviously when you deposit that cash into your bank account, then obviously you have to go find that deposit on your statement and just write down the date that you put that money in and obviously what it was. So for me, it would be X amount of money on this date paid in was guitar lessons that I taught. So that's the sort of stuff that I've been going through this week, and that's working out how much money I earn. And other than the money that you're earning, you're also going to be spending money on yourself, on your business, which is what's called expenses. Business expenses, which as a musician, as a guitar player, my business expenses are things like obviously guitars, equipment, amps, strings. Even spending 50p on a plectrum is a business expense. So anything that I spend money on basically to be able to do my job better or do my job at all, fuel for my car to get to a gig, that's a business expense. If you use your phone for business, whether it's making calls to clients, or I use my calendar all the time on my phone. And I've also got things like social media on my phone, which is all used to help me with my business and myself as a musician. So my phone bill, I need my phone to do my work, so I can use that as a business expense. So that's what I do. So you need to be tracking how much money you're spending as well as earning. So have one book with all your earnings written down, or not even a book, but something. It could be an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. But any money that you earn should be written down somewhere and added up. And any money that you spend should also be kept together in a separate folder. So if you're spending any money on anything, get a receipt and keep all of your receipts, just so you can look back and you know exactly how much money you spent. If you spent any money on anything that you didn't get a receipt for, then just make a note of it. And again, if that money has come out of your bank to go to something, you can at least show what that money was for on your bank statement. But the best advice is to just keep your receipts. I like to put them in order, and I like to put them in little plastic wallets in groups of 2 months at a time. So April and May, one plastic wallet, and all of my receipts for April and May go together, and I'll just highlight all of the amounts that I've spent, add them all up, and then on the front of the plastic wallet I'll write April and May with a total of how much those receipts add up to. I do that for the entire year, and then once the entire year is over, I can just add up all those totals, and that gives me my total expenditure based on how much money I spent on my receipts. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all you need to be worrying about. If you're anything like me anyway, there are varying degrees of owning a business and being self-employed. But for me, I am just myself. I don't own a company or anything like that. It's just me, and I play gigs, I teach lessons, and now I do YouTube. as well. I get paid to do these videos, only a small amount, but it adds up. So all of these three things I need to be declaring. So I need to be writing down every bit of money that is coming in, but also keeping a track of all my receipts so I can show how much money is going out as well. Also, I teach in an office, so the rent for that office, that's another business expense. And ultimately what you can do at the end of the year, when you put this into your tax return, you're going to tell them how much money you made, how much money you spent, and then they're going to give you the difference between those, which is your profit, which is what you get taxed on. And then once you put that in there, you get a bill. That's pretty much it. That's all I've done. And it's caused me a lot of stress. There are things that you can do to make it a little bit easier. I've not done this yet, but I'm going to when we hit the new tax year, is you can use apps which hopefully make your life a lot easier. Apps like QuickBooks is one that I'm going to be checking out, where I'm pretty sure that you can take pictures of all of your receipts. So you might not even need to keep them. I need to look into this a bit further. You can take pictures of all your receipts and scan them in so that the app keeps track of how much money you're spending for you. So maybe at the end of the year, you don't even need to do any adding up yourself. Maybe the app has already added it up for you. And any work that you do, you can just input that straight into your app. So at the end of the year, when it comes time to do tax return, you probably don't have that much to do because the app has done it all for you. So that's something that I need to look into as well. Also, I mean, you can get an accountant. A lot of people just give the accountant their stuff because they don't want the stress of dealing with it themselves. But when you actually look at it, it's not too bad, and it might just save yourself some money to do it yourself if you can. Hopefully this video has given anybody out there a bit more idea of what to do themselves rather than paying however much it is for an accountant, hundreds of pounds probably, for them to do something that you could easily do yourself. Other thing that I might recommend, which is something else that I need to do as well, as I said, this is the third year that I've done my tax return now for my earnings, and I still haven't got around to doing this yet, is get a separate account for all your business spending and income. If I got a separate bank account, it doesn't have to be a business account, but just an account, so that any money that I earn goes into that account and any money I spend on my business goes from that account. Then looking through the transactions will be a lot more smoother, because currently I was looking through my transactions the other day for all the money that I earned and spent on my business, but amongst my personal spending. So in between looking at my earning from guitar lessons or gigs in my bank account and the spending of guitar strings and stuff like that, there was things like McDonald's or anything that I spent money on for personal reasons, not business reasons. So it made the process of looking through it a little bit more tedious. And obviously like personal rent, like apartment rent and bills and stuff like that. And that's all you really need to do. So I'm going to leave this video there. If you've got any questions, then drop them below. Hopefully this video has helped anybody out there who might be feeling a little bit confused about the whole tax return or being self-employed and what you need to do to be paying taxes and being legitimate and everything like that. So yeah, don't worry about it. But anyway, my tax return is done for another 12 months. Usual content should now resume, now that I can focus on other things other than my finances. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this video helped. If you enjoyed it, if you found it useful, then please click the subscribe button, click the like button, let me know in the comments what you think. And feel free to check out another video. If you want to know more about how I make my money as a guitar player, then click here to see that video. But again, over here to subscribe to my channel, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. So thanks for watching.